So today's topic that we are going to cover up is NAT service on the Juniper. Furthermore, we will cover up the DHCP as well, which is not actually part of JNCI, but to make any good lab, we do require uh, this DHCP and NAT services, right? As you have already studied these two services, NAT and DHCP in CCNA. So I hope theoretical part you are already familiar with, but I'll still cover up little bit about it. Okay. Jesus VCP and VFP is not required in our case. VMX combine both control plane and forwarding plane. We are using the older image which has both the control plane and forwarding plane in one device or one virtual image. Okay, okay so so NAT and some NAT theory little bit and then lab scenario, and we'll see the configuration how we did it on VSRX and then DHCP on Juno S VSRX. So basically we use private to public translation of the addresses through the NAT services, right? And the basic NAT service is based on source NAT. So source IP address is changed, right? Destination NAT is used in the servers, and the static NAT is also used in the server case, right? But that we are not going to cover up. Here we are just considering the basic source NAT services. So these are different type services. Source NAT, destination NAT, you can see the flow. Static NAT is bidirectional. And in case of Juniper, especially VSRX device or the SRX device, which is a firewall. So NAT is processed like this. So there are two paths, fast path and the first path. In the first path, the NAT is processed, and in the subsequent packets, the next packet or the subsequent packet, you can say, is going through the fast path. In our lab, we are using private network as 192.168.10.0. Actually, this 192.168.147.0 is also logically a private IP address, but as we are using it in our laptop as a NAT cloud service, so that's why it counted as a public network. In this scenario, it is counted as a public network, but it is not actually a public network. I'm going to show you on this on the JWEB as well as the CLI. First, I'll show you on the JWEB. I already configured it, so I'll just walk you through the configuration. What is the basic requirement of the NAT on JWEB, and later on I'll show you how we can do it on the CLI. Right? So on the CLI configuration also I'll explain it. This is fully running configuration, and it is already tested on my machine. So you can see on the VSRX. Let me access this console of VSRX. Let me start the session. Okay. What is the command to check the interfaces? We have seen this multiple times, like show interface, TERS, right? But this gives all the output of the interfaces. If you want to limit it for only particular IP address like 192, which starts with 192, we have a match option of 192. So you can see here G000 as shown in the diagram is 192.168.147.5, which is outside interface as per CCNA terms, right? And G001.0, right, which is a inside interface and has the IP address 10.5. I kept 10.13, 10.14, like this initially static IP address. Later on, I configured a DHCP also here. So beside this, what IP I got on VPC3, let me show you. VPC3. So I got 10.10 on this VPC4, right? Let me access VPC4. Actually, this is VPC3. Let's access VPC4. I don't have any IP address here, I think. So IP, and I don't have IP address here. If I want to get the IP address on this VPC machine, so virtual machine, right? So I just have to run IP DHCP, and the DORA discover offer request acknowledgement, like this we get the IP address on this, right? Let's give the configuration. So I got the next subsequent IP address 10.11, which is configured on the DHCP. Let me show you. This is our JWEB access. Last time I shown you how this looks like. Now we are doing some configuration or checking some configuration on this Juniper VSRX device with so what do you think if you want to see the configuration related to this DHCP, where we have to go? You can give hint. See, we are already in the configure section. We have dashboard, we have configure, we have monitor, right? Maintain and troubleshoot. So obviously we have to first go in the configure, and correct. Ganesh has given a correct hint on this. Services, under services we have DHCP service and SNMP service. So under DHCP service we have relay agents, DHCP server and DHCP client. So let's go for DHCP service. So on which interface you want to propagate this DHCP service? So as you can see in the diagram, GE001. So I'm going with the minimum basic configuration, right? So we just have to add this GE001.0 interface here, right? Beside this, we have to go to the pool, right? I have already this pool configured. Let me show you what basic configuration we have to do. So address full subnet is 10.0 as shown in the diagram, 10.0, right? Furthermore, address low range 10.10 and the high range is 10.20. As I shown you on VPC3, I got 10.10, right? Let me restart. So, yeah. So here I got 10.10, whereas on VPC4, I got 10.11. If I try to get the IP on VPC5, the 10.11, 10.12 IP we will get. Akshay, we can do multiple things on this, but this device is a basic configuration device, right? We have to configure multiple pool in that case, right? So here we are doing with the basic one pool configuration. Obviously, there will be a provision for multiple pools, right? If we have multiple inside interface, right? So this is trust interface. Actually, zone wise, this in the firewall, I have trust zone. And the outside public zone is my untrust zone. Okay. So this next IP address, next subsequent IP address on the VPC file. Let me access it first. Okay. Same command I'll run IP DHCP. And in the monitor tab, you can see also the bindings. I have not skewed much information except the server information. I kept default gateway. We can put DNS servers also here. And least time I have not specified here except this 5,000 seconds, right? So let's get back to the service DHCP pool, right? So if you want additional pool, you can add that pool here, right? And if you want servers with the static bindings, that can also be done here, right? And if we want monitoring, so we can do the monitoring of the services DHCP. So bindings will be shown here. Statistics bindings, right? So 3 computers got this IP addresses from these MAC addresses, right? And the timings also mentioned here. Okay, now let's get back to the basic configuration on the interfaces what we did. So I have configured these two interfaces, GE000 and GE001. But this JWEB, I faced some issues while configuring this the logical interfaces. So I utilize my uh, configuration here on the CLI basis. Edit interfaces. If you see the configuration here, it's basic configuration GE000 unit 0 family INET 147.5 is a static IP address. It's a static IP address on the untrust zone. Zone is not mentioned because in interface configuration, the zone is not mentioned here, right? And on your inside network or your trust network, we have this static IP address, right? Now let me show you what we did in the routing part. So config, let's go to the top and add it. Where we see the routing options, guys, routing, where we see our routing related information, routing options, right? So under routing options, let's check. So we have a default route 000, default static route, right? And pointing toward 147.2. Why I kept this? Because my EVNG is connected with this cloud, right? How we use this cloud? Cloud 0, right? Amongst this is the second options mentioned here, right? And this is exactly connected to 147.0 network, 192.168.147.0 network. This network is available in the NAT settings. This is a NAT setting. And if you go to the NAT setting, this is a default gateway used in this NAT settings, right? That's why we have to select this IP address, right? So hope so it is clear, right? Then next thing that we have to see in terms of the security configuration. So let's go to the top, edit, security. So here lots of configuration is there. One of the configuration is screen, that is not important for us. Then we have NAT configuration that we will focus later on. Then we have policies configuration, that is very important. So from zone trust to zone trust means if we have two interfaces in the trust zone, everything will be allowed, right? Everything will be allowed in that case. Even if the traffic is coming from trust zone and going toward untrust zone, right? That also I made allowed. You can see here policy default permit match source any destination any application any then match permit. If you want to see the same thing in our JWEB, then we have configure. Under configure we have security option, and under security we have policy security policy, right? And you can see here trust to trust default permits, and if you want to see trust to untrust, we can see like all to all, right? And filter. So you can see here trust to untrust also we kept allowed. Only untrust to trust is blocked. Okay. Same thing, I can add more easily from here, right? I can give a policy name, right? And then the one which is marked with star, we have to take it, right? So already it is configured with all the required zones and all, right? Source addresses, destination addresses, everything is mentioned here. And so this is also one option that we can configure, or else we can utilize our VSRX for this purpose. The VSRX CLI for this purpose. Then under zone sections, the zone, we have security zone trust, right? Under this, we have host inbound traffic. In this, we have to enable ping and DHCP service, right? And on the untrust zones, I kept HTTP, HTTPS, SSH, Telnet, and DHCP all on, right? Because I'm using this JWEB on the 192.168.147.5, right? Which is connected on untrust. Same IP I'm using here. So we have to keep track of this. So if you don't allow this host inbound traffic, your DHCP service will not work. Now let's focus on the grid security NAT. So okay, I'll check this on the operational mode. Show configuration, display set. And specifically, we will look for the NAT service. So security NAT, okay, and then we have rule set. Let me make it visible, right? So we have from interface GE001. As you can see, GE001 is a from interface, right? And we have to interface to GE000, right? Then we have rule with the name NAT trust. Okay. Source address is 192.168.10.0, right? Here. It's just like a in CCNA we use ACL, right? So here we have to use MAC source address. Furthermore, I kept two private IP addresses, 10.0 and 20.0. Next on tomorrow's session, I'll introduce a few more network in this, like a 10.0 and 20.0. So that's why I kept it wide open for both of them, right? And destination address is not specified, it is anything, right? Then these are all match options, right? And here we have then options. In the then options, we have source NAT interface, right? So these are all what we can say NAT configuration on the CLI. I copied this. Let's take this into our document. This is on JWEB, the NAT on the JWEB. Now let's take the configuration on CLI. So, okay. Now let's analyze the same thing on JWEB. So under under NAT section, we have to check. So source NAT we are doing, guys, here, and the same name as we have seen, the name is NAT source. So here it is mentioned NAT source, right? If you are adding the wizard would look like this, right? Here you have to give the NAT source as a name. I'm just going to edit it now. So it says NAT source. The interface that we have used is your inside interface is 11001, okay, and the two interface is triple zero, right, as per our diagram, 001 to 000, right. Then we have rule applied here. If you are adding it first time, you have to go through this and you have to give a name first. So the name here given NAT trust, right? Let me show you the edit section of this. So source address can be 10.0, 20.0, and destination address can be anything. What we have to do, we have to do a source NAT with the egress interface address. So what is the egress interface? Egress interface is 000 and the IP address is 192.168.147.5. So this is a rule that we have here. So only these two component is important, right? And furthermore, the policy is also important, right? So that policy I already shown you in the security. We should have allowed policy under security policy. So that's it, guys. Most of the things are I shown you or I explained you about this. If you have any question, ask me. One question that came from Akshay, I already told you, like if we have multiple, if you have a multiple interfaces in the LAN part, then you can configure a multiple pool for this purpose. Hope that's answer your question. So we have a provision to create multiple pools, right? Yeah. Any other questions? Next topic that we have to cover up is routing policy, right? So just like a routing options, we have a policy options, and under policy options, let's consider we have import policy, export policies. Let's consider export policy. So we have a static route here, and I want to uh, export that in the OSPF. So if we export that into OSPF, suppose VMX router is connected here and has a form enable relationship. So whatever routes are coming, static routes like a default route comes and OSPF in it will be exported into OSPF. So in OSPF it will be visible as a external routes. So that is the next thing that we have to do. And this type of filter or this type of firewalling that we have seen is a stateful firewall. But in case of router, VMX router, we have a stateless firewall. Akshay, in configure ingress and egress interface, is it mandatory? So in what context you are saying? If you want to configure NAT, in NAT ingress and egress interface is required. Like NAT is done from a particular flow. Like my flow of the NAT is from this trust zone to the untrust zone, right? So that's my source NAT. We have to explicitly specify in the configuration like which is an ingress interface and which is an egress interface. Correct, Ganesh. Like we have to explicitly say like inside interface is GE001 in Cisco, and in the GE000 is the outside interface. Like this, we have ingress and egress interface. Good analogy. Anything else, guys? Okay, then tomorrow we'll cover up the routing options with the policy, routing policy we have to consider, and export policy and import policy. Import policy, we'll see if BGP is configured, then it is required. Export policy use case is like a OSPF. Sure, Akshay. I'm still working on the PDF. Some document manipulations or changes are there. Soon I'll share this. I was stuck with the labs actually. These VSRX is not very straightforward on the CLI basis, so I have to do some research on this, and I'm using this old images. That's why it took more time. In the last week, I could not manage to cover up the session. Otherwise, it would have been done in the last week only. Right? I was engaged with some other assignments. Okay, guys. Thanks. We will stop here, and tomorrow we will cover up the rest of the points from our syllabus. Okay.